Namaste. It's a great joy for me as well to be sharing with all of our dear friends in Chennai. Many of you we know, probably some of you who are watching we've never met, but usually Jyotish and I come to India every year for several months. This year this was not possible, but God willing we will come next year. But we're so happy to be a part of this celebration for Master's 100th anniversary of starting his world mission. And we hope that 100 years from now, other souls will be speaking of the 200th anniversary of Master's mission, and they'll be saying, do you realize that at that time, there were only a small percentage of the people in the world that did Kriya Yoga? Now the majority of the world does Kriya Yoga. Someday that will happen. And it will happen because it is the destiny of our great line of gurus to help humanity evolve spiritually. And in this age of Dwapara Yuga, Kriya Yoga is the technique for salvation. So I've been very happily assigned the task of speaking about Swami Kriyananda, Master's direct disciple. And you know, the little boy was born 1926 in Romania, sort of halfway between the East and the West, between India and America. His parents were Americans, but if you've read his autobiography, The New Path, his father was an oil geologist, and he was there developing the oil fields in Romania. And a very thoughtful, sensitive, aware little child he was. He was educated in many countries, many traditions. In Romania, Switzerland in boarding school, England in boarding school. The family moved to America. He was educated in American universities. But his life was one always of searching, always of never quite finding what he was looking for, always with a sense of unfulfillment, that there was something more to life, but he didn't know what it was. And he struggled and struggled. Finally, at a certain point in his early 20s, he found the Bhagavad Gita, excerpts from the Bhagavad Gita, and he read it, and he felt, this is truth. This is what I was looking for. But it didn't give him a path. It didn't give him a guide. And then shortly after that, 1948, 22 years old, he was in a bookstore in New York City and found, seemingly by chance, but of course, such events that have reverberations through the lives of hundreds of thousands, millions of people are not by chance. He found Autobiography of a Yogi, and for the next 2.5 days and nights, he just read that book as though, he said he alternated between tears of laughter, tears of joy and sadness and longing and fulfillment, and he found everything he was looking for. And he took the next Greyhound bus from New York to Los Angeles, after some complications, found his way to Yogananda's feet, knelt before him, and the first words he uttered were, I want to be your disciple. And those few words, of course, changed the entire future of his life and the future of all of our lives as well. Yogananda accepted him that day, but he could see the potential of this soul. He saw his energy, he saw his compassion for others, his desire to share these teachings with others. Swami said as he was riding across the country of America on that bus, he kept thinking, he had a dual thought, these teachings are the most wonderful teachings in the world, and I must share them with everyone. Yogananda could see that this young man was an echo of his own soul. And in fact, in other lifetimes, Master intimated that Swami had been his son when Master he was William the Conqueror. Swami was his son, Henry, and other lives as well. That he had an affinity with that expansive, dynamic energy, both to become one with God and also to share it with all. And Master quickly put him on a fast track. Quickly he had him teaching when he didn't even know the teachings that well. He had him given a Kriya initiation when he'd only been to one initiation himself previously. He made him the head of the monks, and more the head of the centrist department. He put him in positions of leadership and spiritual leadership and responsibility. And then now remember, this was Master accepted Swamiji as a disciple, as I said, 1948. It seems like a long time, but really that was just 28 years after Master came to the West and started his mission. Not that long. And Swami only had 3.5 years before Master had his Mahasamadhi. But in those 3.5 years, he absorbed to the full extent of his soul the vibration, the teachings, the understanding, the mission that Master brought. And Master said to him one day, "You have a great work to do." He didn't say what it was, simply, "You have a great work to do." And then later on, shortly before he passed, Master said to Swamiji, with great fervor, he said, "All my other men disciples, with the exception of Rajarsi Janakananda, have disappointed me. You must not disappoint me." And Swami understood that it wasn't that the other men were spiritually indifferent or lazy or washouts. There were many, many dedicated souls who found God, men disciples of Master, but none of them understood or had the capacity to carry on that mission that Master brought to the West. And so you see, Master could see that that's the direction that he was going. And then after Master's passing, Master's successor, Rajarsi Janakananda, said to Swamiji, echoing the Guru's words, "Master has a great work for you to do, and he will give you the strength to do it." And having been in watching Swamiji, I met him in 1969 when he was just beginning the Ananda movement. The strength that he exerted to create this movement could only have come from a divine source. It was not humanly possible to accomplish what he was able to accomplish in this lifetime. But what are some of the aspects that Swami was able to, aspects of Master's mission that Swami was able to continue and to bring to fruition? Well, let's start with the communities movement. When Swami was a teenager, he was intensely interested in communities way before he met Master. And he wanted to start one, and he talked to his friends about it. And as he said, they were all very enthusiastic until they found out he was serious, and then they lost interest. But this was one of the key cornerstones of what Master brought when you look at his mission statement, the aims and ideals that is published in some editions of Autobiography of a Yogi. He says, to found in all countries world brotherhood colonies, to demonstrate the twin principles of plain living and high thinking, to show that man can live close to nature, that he can regain his sense of spiritual identity, to live in cooperation with other human beings, to live in cooperation with nature, to live simply and harmoniously, but always with the sights directed to union with God, to yoga. And so Swami, when he heard that Master was interested in this, it just kindled this existing flame in his heart. And there was the talk that Master gave in Beverly Hills, 1949, at a garden party. And it was a society event, and this wealthy couple had invited him to give an address to the friends. And these people were not devotees, but they were curious and gracious and so forth. But Swami spoke of the community, or Master spoke of the community's movement with such power. Youths go north, south, east, and west, everywhere to spread this message and unite the world with the vision of world brotherhood colonies. Swami said he had never been so excited, so ignited in all of his life, and he vowed with every fiber of his being that he would launch this movement, and so he did. We're speaking to you now from the beautiful new Temple of Light, which was dedicated at Ananda's 50th anniversary a year and a half ago, and at Ananda Village in Northern California. But we have communities in many places, in America, in Europe, budding communities starting in India, and this movement is just beginning. And everyone whose life is touched by an Ananda group or community just feels this is the future of humanity, to show a balanced life of God, remembrance, and practical idealism. And so Swami was able to fulfill Master's mission in this way. Another aspect that Swami fulfilled, Master was intensely interested in education for children. He started his school in Ranchi. That was his first public work, one might say, after his training with Sri Yukteswar. And it was at the school at Ranchi that he had the vision of America. And he knew he had to come and begin his mission. But his heart was always very interested in spiritual education, balanced character development, implanting values and moral principles in youth to build an enlightened society. Swamiji, who, as I said, was educated in many different methods in many different countries, he too was interested in education because he saw in his own experience what drew the best out of him and what was just sort of oppressive and didn't lead to achieving full potential for the child. So Swami started the Education for Life movement. And we have schools now in many countries, in America, in many countries in Europe, growing in India, these living wisdom schools. And it has the potential, as I say, for the future, to develop the principles of higher consciousness in children. They're non-sectarian. They're not based on religion, but they're based on universal spiritual principles. Another pillar of Master's work that Swami took forward. We could go on for a long time, couldn't we, with all the things. But another tenet that Master was very strong on was showing the underlying unity, the similar truth in the world's great religions, and to do comparative studies of the Bible and the Gita, showing the same underlying truth, and to show the deeper meaning of the Bhagavad Gita, of the Bible, of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, the mystical Sufi tenet book. And Swami Master wrote the incredible interpretations of the Gita, unique in our age, showing that the Gita is not only a literal historical story, but that it is symbolic, and it is as applicable today for each one of us as it was when Krishna uttered those incredible words to Arjuna on the field of Kurukshetra. Swami took up that cause. Master said, I want you to edit. Your work is writing, editing, and lecturing. And he had him with him in the desert of California at 29 Palms when he was writing the Gita commentaries. And so Swami, later on in life, it was not till 2007 that he wrote the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, sharing Master's unique and extraordinary explanation of the deeper meaning of the Gita, as well as doing it with the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam explained, as well as the revelations of Christ with the Bible. So he took up that work of Master's and he deepened it and he made it real, and he published books that are having a widespread reach, touching many, many people. Then the path of meditation and Kriya Yoga. Master, of course, started this. He gave many, many Kriya initiations, classes on meditation, but Swami trained an army. He trained an army of eager teachers, sincere, humble devotees who would also carry on this. Because in one lifetime, there's only so many people you can reach in your classes. But Swami understood, and he trained hundreds of teachers who could give Kriya initiation sincerely, purely, being orthodox to the way Master taught it, not changing it, not making it easy or simple, but doing it with the pure expression that Master gave. And the Kriya now, we're having Kriya initiations. Right now we're in the pandemic, so we can't do them live very easily, but even doing them online, hundreds of people are receiving Kriya initiation. This year alone, many, many hundreds of people throughout the world through the teachers that Swamiji trained. And then finally, what was the core of Master's great mission? The guru-disciple relationship, but not in the sense of, I am distant from you and I will tell you what to do. Master was a warm, natural, charming child of God, and he made everyone he met feel embraced in his love. I'll tell a little brief story. In the early years of Ananda, more than 50 years ago, there was a petrol station where we would, in nearby Nevada City, where we would go to fill up our vehicles with petrol. And there was one station that the man who owned it and ran it was very grumpy. He always had a scowl on his face, and he never seemed happy, and he was very surly. And one day, two of our young men went there driving a vehicle, and on the dashboard of the car, there was a little photo of Master. I'm going to cry maybe when I tell this story. But this old grumpy man said, "What do you want?" And then he looked and he saw the picture of Master on the dashboard, and his face changed. And he said, "I know that man." And they said, "How do you know him?" And he said, "I used to have a service station at the foot of Mount Washington in Los Angeles. And he would come. I didn't know who he was, but I would fill up his car with petrol. He was the kindest man I ever met." That little touch, that touch of divine friendship, that touch of divine love, that's what Master's mission in essence is. That I know God, and I know you as a child of God. And what that does to change your life, I can never, ever express my gratitude. And Swami shared Master in that way. He made each of us feel we were his divine friend, whether we spoke to him or never spoke to him, whether we met him in his body or only met him through his recorded talks and lectures. But that passing on of that divine friendship, that the son of the soul united with God, looking to the little children, all of us, and saying, "Come, I will show you the way. And this is what Swami did for us. With humility, with naturalness, with joy, with love, with embracing of our soul's highest potential, he said to each one of us in his way, "Come, my friend, I have found the path to God, and I will show you too how you can find him." And so this great direct disciple, Swami Kriyananda, who gave everything he had to fulfill the mission that his guru brought. And I can say with complete faith and belief and joy that Swami did not let Master down. He fulfilled the great mission that Master gave him and that the great Himalayan yogis gave to our line of gurus. God bless you all.